Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Marlowe. And for my benefit also, where do we sign up? I should just explain to everybody who is not aware. Chalukas Shas is a custom was established by the Alter Rebbe himself that every community should collectively be Messiah Shas. That means the entire community should get together and complete the study of the entire Talmud every single year, from Vitebsk Kislev to Vitebsk Kislev. And we do this in partnership, each one taking a portion of the entire Talmud. So how do we get the information again? Because I would like to, because I'm Vitebsk Kislev here at North Miami Beach, I would like to be part of the North Miami Beach Chalukas Hashas. Okay. They took all the small Masechtas. Okay. All right. I'll look at this later. Okay. Talmud is still...
Talmud is the most popular one.
Talmud is the most popular one. Okay. What about Zvachim? No, don't sign me up for it. I'll get back to you. No, but I'll take. Believe me, this will be my participation. Will be in the North Miami Beach Chalukas Hashas this year. Okay. And I encourage anyone who's here, if you're learning a Masechta anyway, you can have the benefit that it's not only one tractate, but you're part of learning the entire Talmud. So it's an opportunity. Chaparani. The Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, was arrested on charges of treason. And the nature of the charges, which were libelous charges, but the way that they were substantiated was they claimed that the Alter Rebbe was supporting the enemy of the Russian Empire. At that time, the Russian Empire was at war with the Ottoman Empire. And the Alter Rebbe was sending funds to the Jewish community in the land of Israel. We should give a little bit of background. In the 1770s, there were Chassidim who made Aliyah, who went up and moved to Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land. And their leader was one of the other students of the Maggid. The Baal Shem Tov had 60 students. Baal Shem Tov affected thousands, tens of thousands of Jews in his lifetime, but I'm saying actual disciples who were considered to be formal students, he had 60. And the Maggid, the Baal Shem Tov's successor, had double that. He had 120. The Balatanya was one of the 120. Another one of the 120 was Rav Mendel Horodoker, or sometimes referred to as Mendel Vitebsk. And Rav Mendel led a group of Chassidim to live in the holy city of Tzfas. And after a while, he said he couldn't take it in Tzfas. It was too holy. He was too sensitive to the holiness. He said he has to take it down a notch. So they moved to Tveria. And in fact, the Shul of Reb Mendel Horodoker is still standing in Tveria, and it's a shul today. So, I'll tell you a story of Reb Mendel Horodoker in Tveria. When he was there, this is in the 1770s. This is before 1776, before there was a Declaration of Independence, before the United States of America existed. So, a rumor started because somebody stood on the Har HaZeisim on the Mount of Olives in Yerushalayim, holy city of Jerusalem, and sounded a shofar and proclaimed that Mashiach was here. He was probably a lunatic, but the rumor started nonetheless, and it spread. And this is before technology, so it spread by word of mouth, probably took days. But the rumor came to Tveria, and people were saying that they heard in Jerusalem people saying Mashiach is here. So there was a big debate. They wanted to settle the debate, so they went to the Mendel Horodoker, and they asked him, could he let them know how to figure out if Mashiach is here? So he said, Mashiach's here? Hold on a second. So he got up. They had visited him in his home. He was in his house. So he got up and he walked over to the window, and he lifted up the window. He stuck his head out. And he smelled. He drew a deep breath through his nose. And then he came back into the house and he said, no, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, it's very, very sad, but Mashiach is not here. Now, the Rebbe told this story. He said, the fact that Reb Mendel could smell whether or not Mashiach was here, that's maybe not such a wonder, because the holiness of Reb Mendel, certainly he could be sensitive to such a thing. But the question is, why did he have to go to the window and lift up the window and smell outside? Why do you have to do that? So the Rebbe said that in Reb Mendel's house, it always smelled like Mashiach. So the only way he could find out was to smell outside of his house. This is the idea of a geula protis, that a person can already be living Mashiach before Mashiach is here. Obviously, there's the actual geula, which has to mean world peace, and nothing less than that. But there's also something called the geula protis, an individual redemption that we were mentioning before. The Pada v'Shalom Nafshi, when we embrace every aspect of our personality and figure out how it's a gift that can be used to glorify Hashem. So Mendel was there already. He had his personal redemption. But he said, unfortunately, the redemption for the world hadn't arrived. At any rate, the Alter Rebbe was sending funds that he collected from the Hasidic brethren in Russia. And if anyone knows about Jewish life at that time in the Palace settlement, there was rampant poverty. They were not wealthy. They didn't have money. But the Jews who were living in the Holy Land were even poorer still. They really had no way to support themselves. And the Alter Rebbe used to make appeals. In fact, we finished Tanya yesterday. There's a concept of learning the entire Tanya a little bit every day, according to the schedule known as Chitas, which is an acronym for Chumash, Til, and Tanya. It's actually a word from this week's Parsha. But if you follow the Chitas schedule of Tanya, you end up finishing the entire Tanya in a year. So we just finished it yesterday, out of Vitebsk Kislev. And if you're familiar with the last section of Tanya, what's called Geras HaKodesh, those are letters that the Alter Rebbe wrote, and many of them are fundraising letters, where the Alter Rebbe is collecting money to send to the Jews living in Eretz Yisrael, living in the land of Israel. And in these letters, he's explaining the spiritual and mystical power of tzedakah, of giving charity. So as I mentioned, when they wanted to get the Alter Rebbe in trouble, what they did is they said that the Alter Rebbe is sending money to the Ottoman Turks, because the Holy Land was being controlled by the Ottomans. And those were the charges, and that's what he was arrested for. And charges were treason, aiding and abetting the enemy, supporting supporting Ottoman Turkey. So he was held for 53 days. It's interesting, the first section of Tanya, Likutei Amorim, has 53 chapters. Some people think that the Alter Rebbe wrote a chapter per day that he was in prison, but that's not chronologically possible. He wrote Tanya, he published Tanya before he was in prison. And trust me, I don't think the Russians were like, oh, let's make this poetic and do 53 days. It was 53 days of prison for 53 days of Tanya. And as we mentioned earlier, he was redeemed when he was in the middle of reading the verse from chapter 55 of Psalms, my soul was peacefully redeemed. And when he was released, he wrote a letter to his Mechutin, Rav Tzadik, Levi Yitzchak Berditchever, the Kedushas Levi, who was also one of the 120 students of the Maggid. And the Alter Rebbe told the Berditchever that it was in the merit of supporting Eretz Yisrael that he emerged safely and peacefully from his ordeal. B'schus Eretz Yisrael. So if you know anything about the story, and I mean what I just told you was enough to know to have this question, it's a little bit funny because what do you mean it was in the merit of supporting the Jews living in the Holy Land that he was peacefully redeemed? It was because he was sending money to Jews living in the Holy Land that the whole thing started. That was the problem. Now maybe you'll say, if he wasn't doing that, they would have found some other charges to make up against him. But the actual fact of the matter is those were the charges. What he was brought into prison for was because he was sending money to support Jews living in the Holy Land. And yet the Alter Rebbe says, no, it was because of this that I was free. It's a very interesting perspective. Do you say that doing the right thing got me in trouble, but thank God I got out of trouble, so it's all right? Or do you say, no, it's that I did the right thing, I did what Hashem wants, that's what saved me? It's an interesting perspective. It's a little flip in perspective. I'll tell you a story about a businessman. It was a guy, still is a guy. Actually, I saw him recently at the Eihel. I live maybe 15 minutes from the Eihel. That's the Lubavitcher Rebbe's resting place. And I'm there several times a week. And it's a global hub of activity. You meet all types of people there, coming and going, all times of the day and night. So the person I'm telling you the story about, actually, I saw him recently at the Eihel. There was a young man, a businessman, living in Los Angeles, California, and he owned a sporting goods store in downtown LA. And this is before downtown LA became fancy. And the yuppies made the loft apartments there. This is when downtown LA was Skid Row. And he had a sporting goods store. And he had contact with the Rebbe. Actually, it began, he was an Israeli guy, he was raised completely secular, but for some reason, he never ate pork. That was a red line for him. And then he was on a business trip to China, and he unknowingly ate pork, and he felt bad about it. And he didn't know what to do. Somebody told him to write to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He wrote to the Rebbe and asked what to do about it. So that was actually what began his relationship with the Rebbe. But like I said, he wasn't religious. That was his one thing. His one thing. He didn't eat pork. A lot of Jews have that thing. But as time went by, he started to become more interested in his Judaism. And at some point, he decided that he's going to start keeping Shabbos. But he had a problem that the business, the sporting goods store, 99% of their business was on Saturday. And he had a 20-year lease on the property. And he knew if he's not going to be open on Shabbos, he's very quickly going to go bankrupt. But he's stuck with this lease. And he said when he signed the lease, the owner told him, this is a 20-year lease. Do you know what you're getting into right now? He says, yes, I know. I want it, please. And he said, if you ever go back on this, I will chase you for the rest of your life. I'll make you regret it. He was a tough guy. He knew he meant it, so he wasn't too keen on upsetting him. So he's thinking, what do I do? Shabbos or doing what's convenient, doing what's comfortable? And he deliberated back and forth for some time, but finally he decided he's going to take the plunge. And he wrote to the Rebbe, and he said, I'm going to be closed on Shabbos. And the Rebbe wrote back to him and sent him, first of all, the Rebbe sent him a $10 bill, a $5 bill, a 2 and a 1. Does that make 18? Yeah, Chai. A 10, a 5, a 2, and a 1. Total 18, Chai. And the Rebbe told him that if you close your business Friday before sundown and give tzedakah, you'll be successful. Now, he laughed when he got that, because when he wrote to the Rebbe and said he's going to close on Shabbos, what he had in mind was Saturday day. Friday night, I mean, in the summer, it's not hard to keep a shop open during daytime hours, close it down, and then be in time for Shabbos. But in the winter, you know, Shabbos comes in early, so it would have been a problem. But he had in mind that, remember, he wasn't observant at all. So he was going from no Shabbos observance to this huge plunge where he was going to shut down Saturday when he had 99% of his business. But Friday he was going to still be open. The Rebbe somehow knew that or sensed that and told him, you have to close Friday at Shkia, give tzedakah, you're going to be successful. So now he had his answer. So, emboldened with that, he heads down to the landlord. And he's going to confront the guy. And he pumped himself up. This is it. And he practiced, he rehearsed the speech. I'm going to go in there. I'm a Jew, I have to keep Shabbos. And so he goes down to the landlord's office. And he's all pumped up. And he's ready to give his speech. Basically saying, I'm about to do something that's going to wipe me out. I'm not going to have any money. You know, like, that's it. And the secretary says, Mr. So-and-so is not here right now. So he pumped himself up, but now the guy wasn't even there. So he comes back to the sporting goods store. And he's there for a little while, not too long, before some guy comes running into the store. And he says, I want to talk to the tenant here. Who's the tenant? So he's like, why do you want to talk to the tenant? He says, I just want to know who has the lease on this place. Who's holding the lease? So he says, I'm holding the lease. What do you want? He says, I was just at your landlord. And I told him that I want this place. And he told me there's nothing you can do because you have a 20-year lease. Tell me right now, how much cash do you need for me to buy you out and break that lease? So he was so stunned, he didn't even know what to say. He just stood there silently, which can often be the best tactic in negotiations. The guy's like, all right, I'll give you more. And Reb Ami, his name is Reb Ami, says that I don't want to say the exact number the check was written for. He says, but let me put it this way. With the number on that one check, not only was I able to get out of the sporting goods store and keep Shabbos, which is the most important thing after all. He says, but I was able to buy a house, and I bought a factory, and I went into manufacturing, and I had parnasa from that for a good long time. So what am I trying to tell you? The Alter Rebbe said, it sure was a good thing that I was supporting the impoverished Jews dwelling in the land of Israel. That was my schus, that was my merit that protected me, that ensured that I would be delivered peacefully, safely. And you could say, what are you talking about? That was the thing that got you in trouble. You could say that. But that's not how Hashem's world works. And sometimes you have to take the plunge. And you have to realize, sooner or later, doesn't always happen immediately, but you cannot lose from doing the right thing. And it's terrifying sometimes. And it feels like it's going to break you. And you can't do it. But I want to explain something to you. The Torah is not a book of laws of how to live well in this world. The Torah is Hashem's will and wisdom that existed before the creation of the world. Man-made laws are made for the sake of making this world a livable place. So man-made laws are a response to the conditions of this world. Oh, too many people are speeding. Let's have a city council meeting and let's vote. Should we put in speed bumps? All in favor, say aye. Or whatever it is. Man-made laws are a response to the conditions of this world. Hashem's laws create the conditions of this world. And therefore nothing in Hashem's world, nothing in God's creation can oppose Hashem's will. That's the koyach ha-Torah and the koyach of a psak din. That when Torah says this is the reality, that's the reality. And if it doesn't appear to be the reality in the world yet, it's the world that has to get into alignment. But I should say, it's already in alignment, it just needs to be revealed. So whenever we're afraid to do what we know what we need to do, we have to have the Alter Rebbe's attitude. That doing the right thing can't hurt us. And if anything, that's the source of salvation. That's what's going to help us. And it takes faith. It's a leap of faith. But look, the Jewish people, at this point, it shouldn't even be that hard to have faith because our survival is not really based on conventional things that give a nation strength. And yet, all of our foes have come and gone. Somehow, miraculously, we still exist. It's not natural. It's not normal. It's a miracle. And that's not just true of collectively the Jewish people, but it's true of every individual Jewish person. And we have to be strong in our faith and to do what's right, even when it feels scary, even when you think it's a liability. Imagine if Reb Ami lived in fear of closing on Shabbos. He just couldn't do it. Think of that gift that Hashem had ready for him, that fortune that was waiting for him. He would never have found it. It was only when he marched into the sea and the water came up to his nostrils, like Nachshon ben Aminadav, Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moses said, "March," and they just walked into the sea, and it didn't split until the first person, Nachshon ben Aminadav, he had the water right up to his nostrils. Another step forward, he was going to drown. He kept moving. We have to believe. We have to live. We have to live like the miracles that we are. We have to not be afraid that doing what the Holy Torah tells us to do is a liability. We have to cherish it and know that it's an opportunity, that it brings blessings upon us. Every mitzvah is a conduit to divine blessing. You can't suffer by doing the Creator's will. Sometimes it looks like it feels like it. It can be a scary ride. It can be, don't get me wrong, it can be very scary. Hashem has a very good special effects department. He sometimes makes it look very scary, but it's a show. The reality is that the entire world was created as the forum in which Hashem's infinite eternal will and wisdom should be expressed. The world's only here for that purpose. So I don't know what's scaring you right now, but if there's something you know that as a Jew you need to be doing, and you've been hesitating or putting it off because you don't know what the real world reaction or repercussions might be, I'm just letting you know. Just take a deep breath. It's going to be good. Do what you got to do. There's the Alter Rebbe was a musical genius. He didn't just compose the Tanya and Shulchan Aruch. That's why his name was Shner. Shner is Alman. Shner is Shnei Or, two lights, the light of Nigla, the Torah, and the light of Nister. He wrote the Tanya, which is Nister, the hidden dimension of Torah, Pnimius of Torah, and he wrote a Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch Harav, which is Nigla the Torah, Halacha, practical laws. But he was also a musical genius, and he composed 10 nigunim. So I'm going to ask, maybe even, let's see what'll happen. Let's turn the keyboard down a little bit, put a little bit more burden on the guys here to sing, so we don't all rely on the musical accompaniment. And can I get, Elam, help me out here, with the Hartzike Koil Deidi? Can we do that? Koil Deidi, Deidi, Deifek, Deidi, fake lady. Schele achaisi nasi samasi Schele achaisi rayasi yei nasi masi Yamay ay 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 Ay, 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 ay. During the Naguna, my mic is still on the same way.
The mic is on over here. This mic is on to his camera.
So people are not being tortured by my voice, right?
No.
Okay.